had it gone out. Alright, so some of the audio is going to be missing from this one too, I guess. Alright, how are we looking on this one? H to negative 6. Remember to put it in lowest terms. If your number in the numerator and number in the denominator both are even, that means it's divisible by 2. Okay, so negative 6 over negative 6 squared plus 2 is negative 6 over 38, or negative 3 over 19. You don't always have to stick with just plugging in numbers into these expressions. And we'll see that as we start working with, it's problem number 70-something here. Let me find it. Yes, I think it's 74. So we'll go back to kind of a simpler linear function. G of x is 2x minus 7. And the first thing that they ask you to find is g of w. G of w. Well, they don't want to take a stab at g of w? Megan, thanks for volunteering. What do you think g of w would look like? Perfect. That's all we got to do is just plug in the w. So 2 times w minus 7. These aren't like terms. There's nothing that you can do there. So we'll leave it like that. Thanks, Megan. So instead of plugging in a number, we're now plugging in expressions. Let's look at g of w plus 1. It's going to be the same kind of idea. You can write your function with some empty parentheses and then go fill in those empty parentheses. So I'm putting those empty parentheses where the x was. Let's fill in w plus 1. Sabrina, does this simplify at all? Perfect. If you distribute the 2 and then combine like terms, we end up with 2w minus 5. Yay. So this function notation is actually very, very convenient and extends beyond just the uses we have here. You're not going to see all the conveniences and all the beauty of it in this class, but it is something we will use from time to time, so hopefully you get comfortable with it. To finish up, I want to work on our handout here. And I want to remind you some things about the equations of lines. Now in your Math 1100 class that you took before this, or equivalent that you took before this, you went over these things a lot. I'm not going to be able to give you, tons of examples. So let's make the most of the ones we have here and start by working with the equation of this line. Now, one form of the equation of a line is this one right here, the slope-intercept form. Let's see if we can't determine a couple of those things based on this equation here. The slope of an equation, the actual formula for it is here. But at least in my classes, when I talk about slope, I give people a different way to think of it other than just the formula. Does any one of my students or anyone of you guys remember slope is a ratio of what over what? Rise over the run. So the rise over the run. Rise over the run. So we're going to start out at this point here, and we're going to go a horizontal distance. That's the run. And then once we get underneath this point, we're going to go up. And that's the rise. So the rise over the run. What's the horizontal distance? What's the run? 4. How much of a vertical rise is there? 2. So overall, the slope is the rise over the run. So m equals 2 over 4, which is 1/2. So that's the slope of our line. There's really only one thing left that we need in order to find the equation of the line, and that's the y-intercept. Because that's exactly what we need here. We need the slope and the y-intercept. So what's the y-intercept for us? -2. So the equation here, so that's b equals -2. This equation can be written down for this line as y equals 1/2 x minus 2. There's two things you're going to need to know in order to determine the equation this way: the slope and the intercept. Cool. Let's apply that to problem number 11. Again, one of your homework problems. I hope you forgive me. 8, 9. Problem number 11 gives you two pieces of information. They give you that the slope is 2, and that you're passing through this point, 0, 11. They ask you for the equation of the line. Well, I guess the one thing I'd ask you to think about is this. Where would you find the point 0, 11 on your graph? What feature would it be on? Yeah, it's the y-axis. It's your y-intercept. It's right on the y-axis. So this right here in particular, that's b. b is 11. Well, we got enough for our equation. Y equals 2x plus 11. And that's it. You're done. Now, if I put something like this on an exam, I don't know. You tell me. Am I being nice or am I being mean? By putting nice? Okay. All right. I want you to get these points. These are all formulas that you're going to need to know and be familiar with. So let's practice a couple more here. Hopefully we're okay with problem number 11 there. Now sometimes you're going to need a little bit more here. In problem number 98, you're asked for the equation of a line with a slope of 1/4 passing through the point 8 and 11. Well, you need yet another form of the equation of a line. And that last one here is right here. You don't have to know it by name, but you do have to have its form memorized. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is the point slope form of the equation of a line. You need two things in order to use it. So let me write it down here. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You need 1, slope, and 2, x1 and y1, a point. You need those two things. Hence the name, point slope form of the equation of a line. Well, we got that for problem number 98. We have all that we need. To be very specific, this is your x1, y1. Let's plug all that information in here. It would be y minus 11 equals 1/4 times x minus 8. So y minus 11 equals 1/4 x minus 2. If I add 11 to both sides, I end up with y equals 1/4 x plus 9. Yay. So that's my equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Without graphing, can you tell me with certainty that I got it right? That this line passes through this point and has this slope? Did I get it right? I mean, it'd be embarrassing to have a video on YouTube where I had the wrong answer. So help me prove that I got it right. What would I do? Can anyone tell me for certain that one of these things is right? Gustavo?
Put in the 11 for y.
Beautiful. Let's put in the 11 for y and the 8 for x and see if it works. Okay, so let's check it. Does 11 equal 1/4 times 8 plus 9? What's 1/4 of 8? 2. Yeah, looks like it works. So 11 equals 2 plus 9. Fine. Last thing we need to prove is that our line has the right slope. That's the easier one. You got the harder one. Good job, Gustavo. How do I prove that this line has the right slope? All right, we're getting near the end of class, so let me help it out. There it is. There's your slope. You don't even have to do anything. It's just right there. The slope of the line is the coefficient of x when you have y solved for. So there's your slope right there. All right. Let's see. It's 2 more. So I'm going to try and get you out earlier next time, but we do have 2 more to solve. If you have another class you got to go to, I understand. But we're going to do problem number 100 and then 102, which is on your sheet. Problem number 100 gives you these 2 points. This is a good example of something that I would ask on an exam. This is a prime example where I give you 2 points and say, hey, find the equation of a line. So, if you think back to this formula, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, I needed 2 things. I needed a slope and I needed a point. Well, I've got points in abundance, but I need a slope. How am I going to find a slope to use for this problem? Bravo. Yes. So, what Jessica is alluding to is this formula right here. Your slope formula. Right there. So that's another thing that you got to know. If you've noticed, we've used all of these in the process of doing this work in the section 8.2. Make sure that you have all those memorized. So your slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm just going to label these x1, y1, and x2, y2 respectively. Jessica, you're spot on. Thank you. Negative 8 minus 2 over 2 minus negative 2. That simplifies down to negative 5 halves. So great. We've got a slope. It's right here. Negative 5 halves. Which point do we use? The good news is it doesn't matter. You can pick either point. So if one looks easier than the other, pick that one. If it doesn't, pick the other one. Y minus 2 equals negative 5 halves times x minus negative 2. Y minus 2. I'm going to take just a second and get rid of the double negative there. If I distribute, the 2 is going to cancel out with the denominator of the slope. So just leave me with a -5. And then last but not least, I'll add 2 to both sides. Typically speaking, and with very, very few exceptions, when you're working equations with lines, for me on an exam, I'm going to ask that you write your answers in slope-intercept form. You could check that we got the right answer by plugging in these values, seeing that they work. I'm not going to take the time to do that, but you could. There's one last one, and it's problem number 102. So, almost done. In problem 102, there's one thing that we need to know / understand first, and that is that the relationship between the slopes of parallel lines. What I want to come up with in problem number 102 is the equation of a line that passes through this point and is parallel to this other line. So this is what I want to come up with, the equation of this line. What do you know about parallel lines? What can you tell me about their slopes? They're the same. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite and reciprocals. We want the equation of a line that passes through this point, 2 and 20, and is parallel to g of x equals 8x plus 1. If it's parallel, then it's going to have the same slope as this line. These two lines have to have the same slope. What's the slope of this line? Yeah, 8. 8 over 1, or 8. So since they're parallel, this line also has to have a slope of 8. And that's what we needed. This is your x1, y1. Y minus 20 equals 8 times x minus 2. If I add 20 to both sides, I end up with 8x plus 4. And that's certainly parallel to 8x plus 1. Okay, if you need extra help with some of these ideas, section 3.5 will give you help with y equals mx plus b, and 3.6 can give you help with y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. You can search around for videos on YouTube. My Math 1100 course should have videos that correspond to both of those, so if you want to get a little extra help, you can do it that way. For homework, try 19 through 33, 47 through 73, and 95 through 105. That's just the odds in section 8.2. I'll answer questions on this next time at the start of class, so if you have some questions, bring them in. You can also see Mimi, get some help from her that way. Is there something else? All right. Good luck. See ya.